Most people don't quit because they're incapable. They quit because they think they've seen enough to decide it won't work. A few weeks in, effort feels heavy, results feel invisible, and the brain quietly whispers, "This isn't for you." That moment, right there, is where most dreams die. Not in failure, but in impatience. What no one tells you is that early progress is supposed to feel unrewarding. The work is real, but the proof isn't visible yet. Skills are forming under the surface, habits are stabilizing, and your mind is adapting. But none of that shows up in instant results. So people assume something is wrong and walk away, even when they're closer than they realize. In this video, we're breaking down why humans are wired to quit too early, how emotions distort progress, and why discomfort often gets misread as a red flag instead of a green one. No motivation speeches, no hype, just clear, logical explanations that anyone can understand, even with zero background knowledge. If you've ever started strong and then stopped, if you've ever wondered whether quitting was the right choice or just an easy one, this video will give you clarity. Because sometimes the problem isn't that you chose the wrong path, it's that you didn't stay on it long enough. The illusion of, it's not working. Most people quit not because they truly failed, but because they feel like nothing is happening. This feeling usually shows up very early, when effort is high, but visible results are low. The brain looks at this gap and quickly concludes, this is pointless. But that conclusion is emotional, not logical. Every meaningful process in life has a delay between input and output. You study today, but results come later. You exercise today, but the mirror changes weeks later. You build skills today, but recognition comes months or years later. When people expect instant feedback and don't get it, they misread silence as failure. The problem isn't lack of potential, it's lack of understanding how progress actually works. Progress is often invisible at the beginning because foundations are being built internally. Skills are forming, neural pathways are strengthening, systems are stabilizing. None of this looks impressive on the outside, but it's essential. This is where most people quit too early. Not at the hard part, but at the quiet part. They confuse "no results yet" with "no results ever." And that single misunderstanding silently kills more goals than lack of talent ever could. Humans are wired for fast rewards. The human brain didn't evolve for long-term projects. It evolved for survival, quick wins, immediate threats, fast feedback. When you eat, you feel full immediately. When you run from danger, you survive instantly. This wiring made sense in ancient environments, but in modern life, it creates a huge problem. Most valuable goals today, career growth, skill mastery, financial stability, mental strength, don't give instant rewards. The brain hates that. When effort doesn't produce quick dopamine, motivation drops. The brain starts asking, why am I doing this? Even if the goal logically makes sense. This is why people stick to things that feel productive but aren't effective. Scrolling feels rewarding. Complaining feels relieving. Switching goals feels exciting. But slow, boring, repetitive work feels empty in the short term, even when it's the exact thing that leads to long-term success. When people quit early, they often think they're making a rational choice. In reality, their brain is just chasing faster rewards. Understanding this wiring is crucial, because once you see it, quitting stops feeling like a personal failure and starts looking like a predictable biological trap. Progress is nonlinear, but people expect a straight line. Most people imagine progress as a straight upward line. Effort goes in, results go up smoothly. Reality is very different. Real progress looks messy, flat for a long time, then sudden jumps, then plateaus again. When people don't see steady improvement, they assume something is wrong and quit. Early effort often goes into learning basics, correcting mistakes, and building coordination. During this phase, performance may even look worse than before. This creates frustration. I'm working harder, but I look worse. Without understanding nonlinear progress, people misinterpret this phase as regression. Breakthroughs usually happen after long periods of invisible preparation. Skills stack silently, then suddenly connect. From the outside, it looks like overnight success. From the inside, it's years of unnoticed work. People quit right before these jumps, not because they're incapable, but because they don't know how progress actually behaves. Once you accept nonlinearity, patience becomes logical, not motivational. You stop measuring success daily and start measuring consistency. And that shift alone keeps you in the game long enough for results to finally show. Emotional discomfort gets misread as failure. Growth feels uncomfortable, not occasionally, consistently. Confusion, self-doubt, boredom, and frustration are not signs you're doing something wrong. They're signs you're stretching beyond what's familiar. But most people were never taught this, so they interpret discomfort as a warning signal. When something feels hard, the brain looks for escape. It says, maybe this isn't for me, or, I'm not built for this. These thoughts feel reasonable, but they're just emotional shortcuts. Difficulty doesn't mean incompatibility, it means adaptation is happening. People quit early because quitting removes discomfort instantly. That relief is powerful and addictive. The brain learns, quitting equals peace. Over time, this creates a pattern where anything uncomfortable becomes something to avoid, even if it's meaningful. Once you understand this, discomfort loses its authority. You stop asking, is this supposed to feel this hard? And start asking, what is this discomfort trying to teach me? That reframing alone separates people who grow from people who repeat the same cycle forever. Lack of visible identity change. Most people quit because they don't feel different fast enough. They expect that once they start something, learning, training, building, their identity will instantly upgrade. But identity change always lags behind behavior. You act first, you feel different much later. For a long time, you're doing the right things while still feeling like the old version of yourself. You're studying but still feel dumb. You're exercising but still feel unfit. You're building but still feel behind. This gap is confusing, and people assume something is wrong, so they quit. What they don't realize is that identity is built by evidence accumulation. The brain needs repeated proof before it updates self-image. 1 week of effort is not evidence. 10 weeks start to be. 6 months makes it undeniable. Quitting early resets the evidence counter back to zero. People who don't quit aren't magically confident, they simply stayed long enough for their identity to catch up with their actions. Once that happens, continuing feels natural instead of forced. Quitting early keeps people trapped in the same self-image forever. Unrealistic expectations set people up to quit. Many people don't quit because they're weak, they quit because their expectations are wrong. Social media, movies, and success stories compress years of struggle into minutes. This creates the illusion that progress should be fast, visible, and exciting. When reality doesn't match that image, disappointment kicks in. Expectation shapes perception. If you expect fast results, slow progress feels like failure. If you expect ease, effort feels like a mistake. But if you expect difficulty and delay, the same experiences feel normal. The work didn't change, your interpretation did. Skilled long-term thinkers deliberately lower short-term expectations while keeping long-term standards high. They don't expect motivation to be constant. They don't expect clarity early on. They expect confusion, boredom, and resistance, and plan for it. Once expectations align with reality, quitting loses its emotional justification. You stop asking, why isn't this easier, and start saying, this is exactly what progress feels like. And that mindset alone keeps people in the process long enough to win. Comparison kills persistence. One of the fastest ways to quit early is comparison. You look around and see people who are ahead, stronger, smarter, more successful, and you assume they started at the same time or with the same conditions. That assumption is almost always false, but it feels real enough to drain motivation. Comparison distorts timelines. You see someone's highlight, not their early confusion, failed attempts, or invisible years. When you compare your beginning to someone else's middle, your progress feels pathetic, even when it's actually normal. This mental trap shifts focus away from growth and toward ego. Instead of asking, am I improving? You start asking, am I better than them? That question has no stable answer, so motivation collapses. Quitting feels like escaping embarrassment rather than giving up. People who persist compare only one thing, today versus yesterday. That keeps effort grounded in reality. Once you detach from external timelines, consistency becomes easier, and quitting becomes unnecessary. People confuse motivation with commitment. Motivation is emotional, commitment is structural. Most people rely on motivation to continue, but motivation is unstable by nature. It rises when things feel good and disappears when things get boring or hard. When motivation drops, quitting feels logical. Commitment, on the other hand, doesn't ask how you feel. It's built into routines, schedules, systems, and identity. You don't wake up and decide every day, you just follow the structure you've already set. That's why committed people seem disciplined when they're actually just organized. People quit early because they wait to feel like continuing. Skilled performers continue first, and feelings catch up later. This is not force, it's understanding cause and effect. Action stabilizes emotion, not the other way around. Once you stop depending on motivation, progress becomes predictable. You don't need hype, you need systems that keep you moving even on low energy days. That's when quitting stops being an option and becomes irrelevant. Quitting feels like control, but it's actually avoidance. Quitting gives an immediate sense of control. The pressure stops, the expectations disappear, the discomfort fades. In the moment, it feels like a smart decision, like you've taken charge. But psychologically, quitting is often not control, it's avoidance. Avoidance protects self-esteem. If you quit early, you never have to face the possibility of real failure. You can tell yourself, I could have done it if I tried longer. That story feels safer than staying long enough to find out the truth. So the brain chooses safety over clarity. The problem is that avoidance compounds. Each time you quit, the brain learns that discomfort should be escaped. Over time, persistence feels harder, not easier. The threshold for quitting gets lower with every repetition. People who don't quit aren't fearless. They're just willing to stay uncomfortable longer than others. They choose clarity over comfort. And that single choice separates growth from stagnation.